and their trainers here had encouraged them to extend that natural behavior by rewarding them with fish and other positive reinforcements. Their incredible coordination demonstrated a high level of intercommunication. Now here is Smiley, at one time the highest leaping dolphin in the world, thrusting itself 21 feet up into the air. Then I had the unforgettable experience of actually playing deck tennis with a dolphin. I threw this little red rubber ring into the water, and the dolphin used its beak to throw it back to me. I threw the ring in again, and the dolphin again returned it. It was an interspecies game. After Miami, we drove up through Central Florida to Cypress Gardens, where the southern belles in their colorful gowns were as beautiful as the many varieties of flowers. Cypress Gardens is famous for its water ski show. We had never seen anything like this, and it was quite a sight. These skiers start out in tandem and end up in a human pyramid, carrying the flag of the Southern Confederacy in what they called a salute to Dixie. This is a miracle act, a man skiing only on his bare feet. Watching the high jump was a thrill, and slow motion makes this three-man jump even more thrilling. Watch the man in the middle. He almost doesn't make it, but does end up okay. The final act was the dramatic kite-flying ride. Up, up, and away. The next state we stopped in as we headed west along the Gulf Coast was Mississippi, where we enjoyed another saltwater swim with breakers, this time in the Gulf of Mexico, near the lighthouse at Biloxi. We reached the western end of our southern journey when we arrived in New Orleans, in the state of Louisiana, where the Mississippi River reaches the sea. In this old world city, we were impressed by the exceptional iron grillwork on balconies and fences, which we learned were largely the work of blacksmith slaves. This is the War of 1812 battlefield, where the Americans fired their guns and the British kept a-comin' till they were almost totally wiped out by the small army led by Andrew Jackson here, who later became president. Heading homeward finally through the state of Alabama, we were upset to see signs of segregation, with separate restrooms, drinking fountains, and lunch counters for whites and blacks. That direct experience led our family to support the civil rights movement to end racial discrimination, and 4 years later, in 1963, the March on Washington, led by Martin Luther King, Jr. Our first stop when we reached the state of Tennessee was spectacular Lookout Mountain, overlooking the Tennessee River and the city of Chattanooga. During the Civil War, this was the site of the famous Battle Above the Clouds, a decisive engagement in which Union forces stormed to the top of the mountain and dislodged the Confederate forces, causing them to retreat back through Georgia to Atlanta. A visit to the Great Chickamauga Dam helped us to appreciate the far-reaching significance of the Tennessee Valley Authority, which President Franklin Roosevelt had set up during the Depression years of the 1930s to bring rural electrification and flood control to this whole area. Then a visit to the American Museum of Atomic Energy at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, enlightened us about the beginnings of the dangerous new atomic age we had entered at the close of World War II in the 1940s. Crossing over into western North Carolina, we visited a reconstructed pioneer village, which was the setting for a tragic play called Unto These Hills, dramatizing the forced expulsion in the 1830s of 20,000 Cherokee Indians from their mountain homes along a trail of tears 1,000 miles to Oklahoma. We stayed for an extra day at a campground in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina. We thought that the rarefied atmosphere of this mountainside site would be a good place to practice our outdoor cooking skills, so each of us took turns at flipping pancakes, with mixed results. This is David, and here's Mary. Uh-oh. It appeared that Danny was able to flip his invisible pancake so high up into the sky that when it came down, he couldn't avoid having it land on his face. As we traveled north on the beautiful Blue Ridge Parkway, we enjoyed stopping at Blowing Rock, where unusual air currents keep light objects blowing upward. We followed the parkway into western Virginia and drove through the Shenandoah National Park on the Skyline Drive. These magnificent roadways extending along the crests of mountains for hundreds of miles are the longest highways in the world, designed purely for recreational motoring. We had tremendous views looking down into deep valleys on both sides of the highway. Our one stop in West Virginia was at Harper's Ferry, where the abolitionist John Brown had tried to free some slaves just before the Civil War. Then, back in Pennsylvania, we stopped to visit Gettysburg, the site of the Civil War's most decisive battle and the turning point of that great struggle. In one of the most terrible and tragic battles ever fought, in July 1863, the Southern forces of General Robert E. Lee, in a desperate charge across this bloody field, were finally turned back by the Union forces with a horrendous loss of life on both sides. In all, more than 50,000 men were counted lost in this one three-day battle. It was here on November 19, 1863, that President Abraham Lincoln delivered his famous Gettysburg Address, praying that from these honored dead, the living may take increased devotion to the cause of one nation, under God, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. This was a sad but significant piece of America's history with which to conclude our 1959 journey, and that's the end of Part 1 of these Marstow family camping trip videos. Part 2 will take us up to the great Northwest and the great Southwest, and that will be in the next tape. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed reliving these experiences with us. Take care and give thanks.